But moving on to big AAA docs. This is one that's going to take some explaining.
I'm going to let you go because I still not 100% sure I follow this.
Okay, so yeah, I can break it down for you. So,
Cool.
Assassin's Creed Infinity was a story that first got broke by Jason Schreier at Bloomberg and was a few hours later announced in a press release from Ubisoft. In this press release, they state, after both Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Assassin's Creed Valhalla shattered records, along with our announcement of new content coming to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, we wanted to share some key updates on the talented and creative minds that will now be working in a collaborative cross-studio structure between Ubisoft Montreal and Ubisoft Quebec that will guide, grow, evolve, and define the overall future of Assassin's Creed that includes an important upcoming early in development project codenamed Assassin's Creed Infinity. Ooh. So a lot of nonsense there. It's press release talk, but yeah, I saw a lot of bad takes. I think there was a Polygon headline that says like the next Assassin's Creed game is an online live service game. Like that's blatantly not accurate.
Yeah, that's not right.
And it was funny actually because I was talking with a friend of mine the night before this got announced, where I was like fawning about the Assassin's Creed Brotherhood multiplayer and how much I loved that. I was like, man, if they released Assassin's Creed Brotherhood multiplayer as a live service game, like free to play with a battle pass or whatever, I bet that game would hit nowadays. After like things like Among Us and stuff. But no, this is not what that is. So the breakdown of Assassin's Creed Infinity is that it is now a service-based platform which is designed to act as a hub for Assassin's Creed going forward. Ubisoft Montreal and Ubisoft Quebec, which are the two studios that developed the Assassin's Creed games back and forth, they are now essentially one massive studio operating in parallel to focus on exclusively Assassin's Creed. I don't know if that means, like, I think it was Ubisoft Montreal, whoever the Assassin's Creed Odyssey team were, immediately went on and made Immortals Phoenix Rising. I don't know if it means that we're not going to get anything like that anymore from these studios, but I'd bet on it. I feel like they're both just like Assassin's Creed studios now. The concept is still in early stages and will not release any time before 2024, so this is a ways off, but still interesting. As I mentioned, it's not an online service game of any kind, though that is not to say that as part of this initiative, there will not be like an online Assassin's Creed game of some kind, but there was nothing about that mentioned here. The point of this is to give more cohesion to Assassin's Creed as a brand, as opposed to just like every now and then just like sprinkling titles here and there. And we'll get to it in a minute, but this whole shake-up is causing a bit of friction between the studios. You were laughing there, John. I'm not sure what that. Just the absurdity of the situation.
The connectivity that of Assassin's Creed. That's exactly what someone, as I've loved the Assassin's Creed games. I've skipped a couple, but I really need the connectivity of that.
Yeah. So Schreier at Bloomberg, he broke the story and he had a bit more information about what this actually is. It is, again, like I said, a platform containing multiple games. Some maybe the full size, like me, Assassin's Creed that we got. Some maybe like smaller games in different locations. But ultimately, this is part of one big platform now, and there's no telling what the next Assassin's Creed game is going to look like. Maybe it'll be, again, the next mainline game. Maybe it'll be something like Assassin's Creed Chronicles, a smaller game incorporating that IP. But the important thing is that they're all going to be connected in some way. They're all going to be shared and not just like splintered off from each other. A spokeswoman at Ubisoft declined to discuss Infinity in detail, but acknowledged its existence. Ubisoft aims to exceed the expectations of fans who have been asking for a more cohesive approach to the series, which I think was a fair criticism that has been labelled on the more recent Assassin's Creed games. Yeah. Again, like, details about the project are still in flux, still years away from release. This is the big one. It's like, why are they doing this now? Why, after the immense success of Odyssey and Valhalla, are they deciding to change up the formula now? I actually have a few educated guesses as to why this is. So I think that looking back on it, they had the three mythological cycle games. They had Origins, they had Odyssey, they had Valhalla, all following the same sort of like longer RPG format that was new to the series at the time, all based around different mythologies. And I think I thought early on that this was always designed to be a trilogy, and then afterwards, once we're done with that, reassess the series going forward. I think even despite the sales of Odyssey and Valhalla being good, I feel like there's a sense that, you know, Valhalla was a console launch game and it was in a really good spot, but maybe this success won't last if we don't change up the formula a little bit. So I think they're scared to just keep going on the routes as they have in the past. You know what I mean? Assassin's Creed has ran long enough now where it's entered like points of staleness and people haven't really jived with it. So I think they're trying to avoid that. Keep it going. There is, by like mixing these two studios into one bigger one now, there's going to be less baton passing. Like, so like 2 years you work on an Assassin's Creed game and 2 years you work on the next one. And again, that's part of like to make it, you know, more cohesive, more like an actual series. The big thing I think though is that there is less risk from a potential Assassin's Creed flop game releasing someday and just like killing the series. I feel like investors are way scared of that now, especially after CDPR. You know, like CDPR had a model of like, let's wait 7 years to release a game, and at the end of that 7 years, we're going to hit big. And when it didn't hit big, everything got fucked. So I think, you know, even Ubisoft, who have been on a shorter cycle for a long time, they still want to avoid that. Like, even 2 years is too much to invest in a thing that ends up failing and potentially souring the series. So I think they don't want this situation anymore, more where an Assassin's Creed launches in November and you play it for a bit and then you're done. They want a situation where you know, the way you identify as a Destiny player or a Call of Duty player, you can identify now as an Assassin's Creed player. You know, I play Assassin's Creed. Which one? Doesn't matter. I'm playing Assassin's Creed. It's what I do.
Yeah.
And this is like the I think it makes sense for the design philosophy of these games. So like playing them, obviously they're not what I would want in an Assassin's Creed game from like Loving Brotherhood and Black Flag and stuff. These have been big, long, meaty, 100-hour. Just
it hurts, man.
Yeah, the best way I described them, and like I instantly got this from Valhalla, and I abandoned it because I knew that the formula wasn't going to change up. I was like, this is a single player games as a service. And so I think even from a game design standpoint, this is where they want it to go all along. It'll still be single player, I think, going forward, but I do think this is going to be more of a year-long thing, a continuing thing, Assassin's Creed as a service now. And that's been a problem for Ubisoft. I was looking at their like financials that they released a while ago, and the big criticism was like, okay, your revenue is growing, so is everyone else's, because we're in the pandemic and it's a console launch year. And when you look at Ubisoft's sales numbers, the biggest growth in sales comes from their backlog of titles. So people like buying Assassin's Creed Gone By, buying Raymans, all that stuff. That's where their revenue comes from largely. But you compare that to competitors like Take-Two with GTA 5 or Activision with Call of Duty, and you see their revenue is skyrocketing from these service-based games. And so I think for a long time, Ubisoft shareholders would be like, where's your service? The money's in service platforms, like, where's yours?
Just give it to us.
So I think they tried it with free-to-play, hasn't worked out. They're trying it again with free-to-play, hasn't worked out yet. They tried it with Uplay Plus, subscription model, hasn't worked. And I think it's funny because the fact that their backlog is so successful, but people are buying them anyway instead of signing up for the subscription model speaks to Ubisoft's audience like not jiving with a subscription model. They tried streaming. They didn't really get their own streaming thing going, so they're going with Amazon Luna, which it's hard to say if that will be a big thing for them. But I feel like this is just their latest attempt to try and figure out service platforms, online, ongoing service platforms. And I feel like this one has the best chance of success because they are modeling it around their biggest IP.
A known IP, yeah.
For a large extent, Assassin's Creed is Ubisoft, and so I think it's smart of them to do it in that way. to lean on their successes. And yeah, they again, just going back to like the concept of Assassin's Creed is going to change, where now you play an Assassin's Creed when they come out.
Yeah.
You have to now identify as an Assassin's Creed player. This is a thing you hopefully keep coming back to, and it, is more sprinkled throughout the year. But it's weird. There's not a lot of details on what it'll look like. Again, it's not a game. It's a hub of several games, and what that looks like going forward is sort of hard to say.
That's where I'm at. Like that's my biggest question. Like, what does that actually mean? Like, do we and follow me? I know what I'm about to say is going to be absolutely insane, and you're going to shake your head at me, and I'm completely on board with what I'm about to say. And
yeah,
I feel like this is like the closest thing that I can think of in my head that I can like relate to this is Animal Crossing. Through the year, you're playing. Yeah. Yep. That's the closest thing I can think of that. Like this is Assassin's Creed Animal Crossing. So, AC, and I am cautiously optimistic. I've enjoyed the Assassin's Creed games, and like you, I fell off of Valhalla because good God, there is way too much to do. And I hope they've learned from this, because you're right. It is a single player games as a service. Oh, here is 120 hours worth of game. Oh, here's 60 hours of one section of DLC. Here's another 60 hours of one section of DLC. And I'm really, really hoping that I don't need all that. I don't think anyone really wants all that either. So give me like a 40-hour Assassin's Creed game when it drops in November. Oh, and then remind me that there's little vignettes, if you will, through the game within that world of 3 or 4 hours. And then maybe like a summer release of a 20-hour concept, and then vignettes, and then the 40-hour game again of extending whatever it's going to be. Because they give us way too much, dude. I'm going to be honest. Like, they give us absolutely way too much in those games, and it's near impossible to, personally, I'll say it this way. Personally, it's near impossible to enjoy it because it's just, it seems like so freaking much to try and like take care of it.
Yeah, and again, I think it's I feel like this platform, if it's done right, does allow a space for those shorter experiences that maybe harken back to the sort of what I would call the golden age of the series. It does allow for like weird offshoots like Chronicles, like 2D side scrollers or whatever. It does allow them to like release, if they did want to release like a multiplayer concept like they had in Brotherhood, but in the modern era, it does allow them to do that. And I think that there is that sense, like that is the big criticism of the Assassin's Creed formula for the past 3 games. And I feel like they are trying to ease that with this, to not give you, to maybe give you the same level of content, the same level of output, but not all at once, right? You're not given this in November and expected to storm through 100 hours of games in terms to get your opinions in for the Game Awards. I feel like this is going to be, hey, this month we're releasing our 20-hour chunk of what this Assassin's Creed game is, or whatever, and next month there's going to be like a multiplayer update, and next month there's going to be this. So I feel like they are trying to spread it out more. Now, again, I don't even think they know in their head how this goes in terms of the like really fine specific details. Like, is this going to be a subscription model? Is it going to be its own launcher? Is it going to be, like what do I? Yeah, and that was kind of what I was going to bring up too. Is just like, and I know we don't know, but like, would you pay $15 a month to play Assassin's Creed? Because we don't know what is it. Is it a games as a service concept where it's a monthly subscription, or is it just I'm in a hub and more battle passing? I guess is the best way to put it. Where it's I have it downloaded on my Xbox, and all right, the game's coming out. I'm gonna go ahead and buy the game. Oh, I really enjoyed this insert number of hour game, and then I buy the little vignette concept. Or is it like you're in this world? Here is, you pay this much every month and you just get it all. I think they're smarter than to go for a subscription revenue model. I feel like pretty much everyone knows that Xbox is the king of that at the minute, and anyone else who's going in that space needs to have a really good pitch. So I don't think they're going to do that. The best educated guess I could make, and this is a big guess, is that sort of what they're doing with the Division now, where they have the big Division title coming out, and then they have the still AAA but free to play one coming out as well alongside that, and then they also have the smaller mobile one.
Okay, yeah.
So I feel like at any given time, you're going to have about 3 or 4 different Assassin's Creed games coming out, and you still have to buy them separately, but they're all going to exist within this one world. So like, say it's a model where, okay, there's a mainline Assassin's Creed game, like say Valhalla 2 or whatever you want to call it. There's the multiplayer thing that I mentioned that would be really cool. There's Assassin's Creed Chronicles, and say there's a mobile game that hits. And you just like swap those out whenever the new one's ready. Like the multiplayer's still going, but now we're ready for a new mainline game. Swap that in, that's your mainline game now. Hey, there's a new mobile update coming out. Hey, that's in there now. So I think that's what it's going to be like. Again, they're trying to emulate the success of Call of Duty. Of
We're all going after Call of Duty.
Yeah, titles like that. Yeah, why wouldn't you? It's just printing money.
It prints money. I had to look it up real fast because I wanted to see how it's changed through the Assassin's Creed when it comes to how long to beat. Assassin's Creed 1 was 15 hours, 2, 19, and 3, 16. And then we'll jump to the ones, the mythological ones. Origins was 30, Odyssey was 43, and then Valhalla was 56. Yeah. And that's just mainline story. You don't screw with anything, and most of us would do like mainline extra. Mm-hmm. And where it's like you do a little bit of extra stuff, and like Valhalla goes from 56 to 90 hours for a game, and I'm like, I don't have that time.
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed was 10 and a half hours.
Yeah, it's really refreshing if you go back and play the Ezio collection, and like you're on the rooftops in Venice and you're on the tallest tower and you can see the whole city, and you're like, well, I can see the edges of the map. This is super refreshing.
This is
for
nice.
Assassin's Creed games, yeah.
I am in this box.
Yeah, I used to hate those like weird walls that they put up. I'm like, thank God you're there. Like, but there's another part to the story, and obviously, like the big merger of these two giant studios, Quebec and Montreal, seems to be causing a little bit of friction, as Jason writes in his write-up on this. Development of Assassin's Creed games have typically involved thousands of employees across a dozen Ubisoft offices, led by teams in Montreal and Quebec that alternate duties. So yeah, they pass back. One did Odyssey, the other did Valhalla, etc., etc. The Montreal team helmed last year's Valhalla, while Quebec, did Odyssey. For Assassin's Creed Infinity, this tradition will also change. In April, Ubisoft unified the Montreal and Quebec teams. Now they will collaborate on Infinity, and each of them will have their own creative director, but Quebec will take charge of the franchise. There has been a long-term rivalry between the two studios that has at times turned acrimonious, according to people familiar with the matter, so this shift may cause some headaches. Yeah, just like moving your whole studio and saying, like, they're in charge now, I don't know what to tell you. A variety of factors contributed to the recent departures. In addition to the Me Too scandal and the reorganization, Ubisoft is facing new competition from other video game companies in Montreal, and some employees tired of working on massive productions balked at the idea of Assassin's Creed Infinity, which may be the most ambitious one yet. So yeah, like massive flux going on in the studio, huge turnover happening right now, and a lot of like weird things, and like that's just like the one aspect of it. What I think is really great, and this is why I love Jason's writing, is he always, ever since he moved from Kotaku to Bloomberg, he's going to a wider audience now. He's talking to people that maybe aren't necessarily familiar with games outside of like the really businessy stuff, and he's always like, anytime he does a big write-up like this, he's always like slotting in something else important there that maybe the wider audience doesn't know about. And so he talks about the harassment concerns still plaguing Ubisoft right now. The reorganization has rankled some employees at Ubisoft, which is still reeling from last year's cultural reckoning over widespread sexual misconduct allegations. Dozens of current and former employees accused Ubisoft of facilitating a culture of misconduct and abuse, leading to the ouster of the studio heads and chief creative officer. However, some managers accused of abusive behaviour remain in senior positions in the organisation. People familiar with the matter said this has prompted a fresh round of complaints on Ubisoft's internal message board from employees who were dissatisfied with the company's response to allegations. last month, the French union Solidaire Informatique, God help me, I hope that's how you pronounce that, said at least
Nice.
3 Ubisoft managers in Montreal have been accused of harassment or toxic behaviour, and employees have reported other claims of racism, sexism to have resources without anything being done. The Ubisoft spokeswoman declined to comment on individual cases. Any employee that had allegations and remain at Ubisoft had their case rigorously reviewed by a third party and were exonerated or underwent appropriate disciplinary actions. She said employees who have been under investigations would not remain at Ubisoft if the results of investigations warrant termination. So there's a lot to process there, but on top of the friction that comes with merging two giant studios, like bigger than they've any right to be, there's also this element of the harassment allegations still going on. A lot of people that were accused of bad stuff still, not only still being at the company, but in the press release, I didn't even mention it, but like the majority of the press release is talking about who is leading up these separate teams for Assassin's Creed Infinity, and a lot of them are supposedly people who these allegations were laid against. And like even before this got announced, there were criticisms like ever since they recruited their chief people officer. When I read that announcement, it nearly made me puke in my mouth.
I forgot that was a thing.
Nothing seems to have really changed. It's just seems like this company has not really listened. Even Yves Guillemot mentioned it at this Ubisoft Forward, but like, man, it's gotta be not only worrying for Assassin's Creed Infinity, like clearly a project that they are putting a huge amount of pressure on to succeed, but also just the Ubisoft culture as a whole, like losing huge amounts of talent from either not wanting to work on this massive corporate monolithic game, or dealing with shit that you shouldn't have to deal with in the workplace. And so there's a lot, like, this Assassin's Creed Infinity stuff is ambitious, but there's a lot going on in Ubisoft that they need to fix first before they can ever have a hope of achieving the success that they have. Of the likes of an Activision, of the likes of a who's another big EA, Tencent, all these companies that are making just absolute gangbusters. Take-Two, so yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff going on, but I needed to mention that because I love when Jason, he's not just talking about Infinity, he's not just talking about the game stuff, he makes sure to slot in important issues in there as well.
A lot more that goes on about making a game than just people sitting around plugging in numbers and then giving it to a controller and see if it works. Now, it's work culture, and that's the issue. Is it needs to change 100%. I mean, I would be remiss to say I don't want this to see. I don't want anyone to fail. That's the thing. I would love to see this Assassin's Creed thing, like, be a big thing where in a year or two we're talking about it, like in the idea that it's in the next COD or anything like that. But it is that there is things going on the back end, the things that are going on personnel wise, HR wise, that need to be looked at and need to be taken care of, because without the employees, you can't make the game. And without the employees feeling like they're safe at work and they don't have to, like, the friction there, not just the two companies come together, but the sexual harassment cases and stuff like that. That is stuff that needs to be taken care of, because that is the right thing to do. That's period. That's the right thing to do.
And it's like doubly frustrating because, again, this is very early stages, but this is a pitch that they want you to be sold by Assassin's Creed as an IP, and they want you to like sign up to this and like stay with it for years and years to come, presumably. And they're asking you to buy into this like major thing and to buy into an idea and to buy into a company when they're just unwilling to change some major faults about themselves when brought up. And so like it's hard to even buy into this idea, at the early stages, at the beginning stages, when there's so much seemingly plaguing this company, and you don't want to support these different aspects. So it's a little bit frustrating when a company like this, and like just to put a bow on this whole Assassin's Creed Infinity discussion, like Jason mentioned in a tweet, like God knows if this will ever see the light of day, even because of all the problems that are going on, but also of Ubisoft's like need to chase trends and to find that service thing that fits. Like maybe in 2 years' time, like this is a while off. Maybe in 2 years' time there'll be a different trend that we'll try and chase, and this will be abandoned. So who knows? But it's there's
And
so many reasons to.
We
like,
don't have
almost
to get
not
into
buy.
this at all because I'm with you. Let's put a bow on it. But I also wonder, like, does that mean we're not getting Assassin's Creed until 2024?
I bet there will be a game. I don't know if it will be huge. Like, I don't think it'll be. I feel like they're going to ride with the Valhalla DLC train for a little bit longer than they have with previous games. I feel like
that's all this year, right?
yeah, I feel like they cannot go as far as 2024 without releasing a game. But what that looks like, I don't know. I can't imagine them being able to do this and big chunky Assassin's Creed game at the same. But they can't last until 2024 without their big moneymaker. So I don't know.